And most accountants go, "Mom, good answer, thank you," and leave. They never ask the next question. Why did you buy specifically on this date? Why did you take great efforts to make it look like you weren't doing exactly what you were doing? Did you tell anyone else about your feelings about this? Is there anyone you talked to or sent an email to saying, "I got a good feeling about hot gosh chicken," or whatever it was called? No, you didn't do any of those things. And slowly you go to tier 3, which means you now we have an anomaly or an aberration. There's a mistake. There's something here. And usually when the SEC is looking at documents at tier 3, they say, this could be a mistake. People make mistakes. That's why God puts erasers on pencils. People make mistakes. I've made a couple. Or it could be fraud. And at that moment, they're sitting there going, I'm going to kind of weigh this and look at it. And I'm going to say, what is the person's track record? If this person has bought large amounts of stocks for years, he's a crap shooter and he throws the dice, and I'm going to go with there's an error, or I'm going to believe him. There's an explanation for this anomaly. But most of the time what they say is, I'm going to say there's fraud, and believe it or not, they'll put the burden on you to prove your innocence. Not in the courtroom. I'm saying, is they're deciding whether or not to prosecute. It'll kind of fall on you to prove your innocence. And what I try to do when I teach my CPE courses, imagine those, they're 8 hours you got to listen to me. 8 hours. I give real tools to accountants, and I'm going to give you some of them. So when you leave, you go, I didn't hear about theory. Mark told me something that was real. That's pretty cool. Now I'm going to talk about my crime, the Z-Best Carpet Cleaning Company, because it's all true. I don't like theory. I got a master's degree in theoretical physics, but I hate theory. I hope your professors never do dumb stuff like, let's have this hypothetical company, and they make widgets. And I go, don't give me that crap. Give me a real company. There's plenty of them out there. I don't even know what a widget looks like. And there you go. So it's a perfect tool for professors. Okay. Well, you know, they couldn't get real jobs, so. I should also say I teach at Pepperdine University, so I'm ragging on myself. I teach ethics. Go figure. But I don't like theory, so I'm going to talk about a real company. I'm going to throw a few facts out to you. At Z-Best, we did competitive bids on restoration jobs where there was fire and water damage. We won all of the bids we had. We always had the bid that won. And guess what our profit margins were? Well, not quite. Were they the industry average for competitive bid industries, which is around 4 to 6%? Oh, no, we were better than that. Were they clear up to double digits, 10%? No, 50% profit. We made 50% profit. In 29 months, not one accountant ever said to me, Mark, how do you do that? Because Bill Gates doesn't. Warren Buffett doesn't. The only people that make 50% profit are drug dealers and hookers. That's it. And it's because of a very low overhead. So, but no one ever asked. No one ever said, Mark, how come I can't see an original source document? Nobody ever asked past tier 1. They would ask me a tier 1 question, I would explain it, and they'd go away. Now, what was I able to do at Z-Best? When I came to Z-Best, they were doing $400,000 worth of business a year. Within 3 months, I raised them $7 million to expand their company. A couple months later, not working for Z-Best, I took a company public. And it was my first public offering. It was a company called LA Gear. Anyone here ever heard of LA Gear? My stock options were worth $52 million. And I said, why should I keep looking for money for Barry Minko that he has to pay back? Why don't we do an IPO? And so we went to NASDAQ and we did an IPO and we raised $13 million for Z-Best. We were oversubscribed 300%. Could have raised $40 million. Based on that $13 million IPO, I went to banks and got $29 million in credit lines. I never showed them one document. I just said, we're going to do more of the same. And they said, the only document we care about is this one that says Ernst & Winnie on the bottom. It says, you're for real. And at one point, I went into a bank, Union Bank, and I was going to ask for $4 million. And as I started to say the word 4, I went 7. And the guy goes, you got it. And then I went, damn, I should ask for 10. And the next day I had the credit line. And I said, but then I played a game called Takeaway with the banker. I said, I don't know if I want your money, because you have this bad rule that I have to pay down my credit line 1 month out of every year, and I can't do that. They said, oh, no, we'll waive that for you. We'll give you 5-year interest only. Guarantee no call. What does that sound like to you? At 2 points over prime. That's the cheapest junk bond in the history of the world. I go, 5 years, I'll probably be in Hong Kong by then. Nobody's going to pay this back. All I got to do is pay the interest? Man, this is like stealing. Now, when I bought my first condo, I was making $250,000 a year playing professional rugby, and I was trying to buy a $70,000 condo. I had to fill out 900 pieces of paper, and they turned me down twice. Suddenly, 5 years later, I walk into a bank, and they go, oh, $7 million? Sure. Need any quarters? Now, all of that was able to happen because they were at least honest with me. They said, this is happening because we see these 2 words at the bottom of a page, Ernst & Winnie. And that was the good housekeeping seal of approval. And that's all I needed. That's all I needed. After I got the $29 million in credit lines, I got a call from a man by the name of T. Boone Pickens. Has anyone here ever heard of him? He's very famous for a thing called green mail, which I'm not going to explain now. I think you all know what it is anyway. And he flew me out to his home, and he said, Mark, how are you going to expand your business now that you guys are the toast of Wall Street? I said, well, the way everybody does. We're going to take the money and open new carpet cleaning things and expand. Now, every fraud has to have a huge part of reality. And we had thousands of employees that clean carpets, just like Enron had a big building with people in it. The fact that a lot of them weren't doing anything doesn't really matter. You hide your fraud behind the facade of something that's extremely real. And our carpet cleaning was real. And T. Boone told me, he said, don't grow the company. He said, go buy one that's already grown. Too bad you can't do that with kids, you know. That's great. And on the flight home, I read that Sears was going to sell its carpet cleaning company. So I got home, and I called Sears and Roebuck. I said, I want to buy your carpet cleaning company. And I said, what do you want for it? And the guy goes, well, we have some bids. And I said, I'll beat whatever bids you have. Tell me what it is. I goes, I'm not allowed to. I said, do you want the money or not? He said, well, we've been offered $23 million. I said, you got 25. I'll send you $1 million today in cash. You hold it for me. Give me 90 days to pay you. He goes, well, what if you don't buy it in 90 days? I said, keep my $1 million. I said, you got it. I then drew up a 40-page prospectus that I took to Prudential Bache, and in 1 hour, they guaranteed me $44 million in junk bonds the minute I had an audited statement. But that same day, I got greedy, and I shopped the deal. I drove over to Drexel Burnham, and Lowell Milken met me there, and he said, you just left Prue Bache, and they offered you $44 million. I said, well, you have a spy over there? He goes, yep, we got a bunch of them. They offered me $51 million. So being a smart guy, I drove back to Prue Bache, and I walked in, and they said, you son of a, they go, you just were over talking to the Milkens over there at Drexel Burnham, and they offered you more money. And I said, can't you guys move closer together so I don't have to drive back and forth? And I got to use a word. I'd always wanted to use this word. I finally got to use a word. I said, wait a minute, bub. I got a fiduciary responsibility to my stockholders to get the most money. I love that. Fiduciary just sounded so professional. So they offered me $63 million. By the end of the day, Drexel Burnham gave me $88 million. To buy a $25 million company. And I started to leave, and Michael Milken came in and said, no, you sit down. You're not going anywhere. I said, can I go to the bathroom? He goes, if you leave your cell phone here. He said, we're flying Barry in on a helicopter. You're signing these papers today. You're not shopping this deal anymore. Now, I had an agreement with Barry Minko that I got to keep 10% of every dollar I raised, whether it was borrowed, junk bond, anything. 10% goes to me. So in one day, I made $8.8 million. Not bad. Some of you have to work a whole year to me. And within a week, Michael Milken called me in his office. He said, I'm going to sign an irrevocable letter of commitment from Drexel to you saying the following. If you can buy Sears and make it profitable within 9 months, he said, we'll get you $820 million to do a hostile takeover of a company called ServiceMaster. Anyone here ever heard of ServiceMaster? I said, why wait 9 months? I'll make it profitable tomorrow. I know how to do that. I'll make up the paperwork. And within 1 month, Milken told me that he and a company called KKR were going to do a $29 billion junk bond offering for RJR Nabisco, and they were going to spin out $2.6 billion of it into my company. So in 29 months, my company was going to go from a $400,000 a year company to a $4 billion multinational corporation owning ServiceMaster, Beatrice Foods, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And all of that based on phony documents. Documents that no one ever asked the right questions about. Now let's look at how Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 questions can actually be asked by looking at a real invoice. This is the invoice for a $7 million restoration job on a 16-story building in Sacramento, California. Now, I teach this at the FBI, and this is going to sound hokey, but here's what I want you to do. And since they take it seriously, maybe you should too. I say whenever looking at a document, and there's also the verbal stories, but I'll get to that in just a moment. I say when you look at a document, pretend it could talk, and literally say aloud to yourself what that document is. So I'm going to turn my back, and you'll only hear my voice, but I want you to think in your brain, what is it I'm doing? I'm going, okay, this is a work order contract number 18886 between ZBest and a customer called Interstate Appraisal Service. This one-page document totals out a bid and acceptance of $7 million. There's some handwriting on it. There's some printed stuff on it that's permanent and some typing that's been done on it. It's got some locations. It's got some boilerplate. And it's got some other words I can't quite read. And then it says, severe plumbing and water damage throughout the building. 11 stories were completely destroyed, and new carpet and flooring were needed. Was there anything about what I just said that struck you as odd? Yes. Okay. Now, that's a great question. Now you're thinking like an accountant, and I don't want you to. Anybody ever see the movie Towering Inferno? This building had huge water tanks at the top. They exploded because of faulty workmanship, and the water fell down and pooled up. That's a good, plausible answer. Did they ask the next question? No. They go, oh, thank you. No. Don't get a calculator, but stop thinking about the usual things. Because what you have to be looking for is more of what's not on this piece of paper. Did anyone hear me say the words, this one-page document? Did anyone hear that? Did any of you go, yeah, I wonder why Mark said that. It's obvious. But that is the sole bid and acceptance for a $7 million contract. So the government CPA, after I told him to look for fraud, said to me, he said, Mark, number one question, is that what a normal $7 million contract looks like in the insurance restoration business? And I said, of course, yeah. That's what, oh, okay. He's an accountant. Oh, thank you. Number two, the government CPA said, I find this interesting. This job is bid to the penny. Anybody here ever worked in construction or ever even heard of construction? Well, has anything ever been bid to the penny? And notice we're not building anything. We're restoring something. We're saying we already know what all the damages are by one walkthrough. Am I good or what? Number three, he said, is this the proper sales tax? Because in California, your sales tax differs by county. Number four, he said, I'm kind of surprised that there's no address of this building. He said, I find this thing kind of unusual. It says, make check payable to the president of the company or to the company. Anybody, Bill Gates ever say, make the check out to me or Microsoft, doesn't matter. You know, it's the same account. I'll reconcile it later. I mean, come on, not that big of a deal. Number six, he said, why is the customer an appraiser? Why? Shouldn't it be like the building owner or an insurance company? Number eight, why is this printed on stuff that's permanent look like it has almost nothing to do with restoration? It looks like words that have to do with